Is the final word daily with Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins covering the England-India Test Series, the first test at Trent Bridge, day 3. Adam Collins has to tell us all about it in the space of 30 seconds.
When India got back today, they were 4 wickets down. They had to knock off the deficit first. They did a pretty good job of that, losing only 1 wicket in the first session. They were 8 runs in the lead. After lunch, James Anderson, Ollie Robinson turned the screws, changed the game, got rid of Rahul for 84 and Jadeja for 56 and opened up India. But Jasprit Bumrah made 28 down the end, some fantastic hitting, earning them a lead of 95. In reply to that, England are 25 without loss. And unfortunately, we didn't get much of a last session because the rain started again. England 70 runs behind as we start the fourth day tomorrow.
Very good. I reckon you were in 28 seconds there. That was my vibe. That was my feeling.
Yes.
So, look, it was one of those days that was frustrating in that, you know, the rain came and went. There was a suggestion that maybe James Anderson is cursed because every time he took the ball, the rain started over the past couple of days. But we did get enough to make it interesting, particularly it's never not fun watching Rishabh Pant do what he does. The way he went about things when everybody else was being cautious, when Rahul was grinding along at a strike rate of 39, out came Rishabh, a gallop down the pitch to smack Anderson through cover, another bash down the ground, then an edge through the cordon, then a top edge over the keeper for 6, and then he hits one straight to cover that stopped in the wicket. And they had a short cover in for exactly that reason. It was an extraordinarily entertaining, small but influential part in the game.
Yeah, it was intent, wasn't it? And look, even after he fell, I felt like the way that Rahul batted when he was the senior partner with Jadeja, continuing to kind of... I know his strike rate was 39, but that improved as he went through the innings. He found the boundary between backward point and mid-off kind of routinely, really. I think he all bar one of his boundaries were through the offside and struck the ball really well off the front foot. Was able to neutralise Stuart Broad especially, which I think was quite an influential part of that of that first session, really, that Broad was going for runs and Rahul had no issue with him. A couple of times they tried to go short, that didn't work either. And Jadeja did as he's so often done in the last couple of years, his batting average. I mean, I think he averaged something like 20. Andrew Sampson had this stat. He averaged 20 for his first, say, 20 test matches, and it's above 50-odd thereafter. So in terms of framing up where Jadeja fits, I think that the case can increasingly be made that he's an all-rounder, not a bowler who bats. And on days like this when they only had 183 to clear the deficit, he puts the foot down, and yes, he gets out at a time when it would have been very handy for him to have hung around for half an hour longer, but that wasn't to be. And yeah, England gave themselves a chance to get back into it, principally because there was James Anderson after lunch doing as he always does. 2 wickets, bang, bang, just as it was on the previous afternoon. A good catch from Joe Root after putting down a straightforward chance. Rahul was dropped twice in the cordon, once by Sibley yesterday, once by Root today just after lunch, but he finally held on to him, 484, opened them up somewhat. Shardul Thakur was out for a duck, and suddenly it felt like maybe the lead might be 50 or 60. Entered Jasprit Bumrah. Some ridiculous hitting, really, when you consider how limited he is with the bat. It's no exaggeration to say that India often carry three number 11s around the world with them. He's one of those 3, but they managed to eke out about sort of 50 or 60 runs between the 3 of them, so a pretty good effort all told.
Yeah, I think it was 72 maybe for the last 3 wickets. But
right, there you go. Yep.
Going through a couple of those points there. Jadeja against Broad, I thought, was key because Stuart Broad against left-handers in the last couple of years especially has absolutely monstered them. As soon as he got the opportunity to bowl to Jadeja, he came around the wicket, as he does. He was bowling wide on the crease, around the wicket at the left-hander, doing that thing that he does where he thinks that he can swing one away a bit, move some back into the pads. Every time he came in at the pads, Jadeja scored. He flicked him through mid-wicket confidently. He moved across the stumps a little bit sometimes. He leg-glanced him. And so that delivery coming in wasn't threatening. You know, that delivery that has absolutely got in the heads of so many left-handers. We saw what it did to David Warner a couple of years ago. It wasn't a threat to Jadeja, and suddenly that neutralised a huge part of England's attack, I suppose. Sam Curran wasn't particularly effective, got a bit of the dog's body work to do and didn't have that much to do. But it was relying on Anderson and Robinson, you know, Robinson playing in the way that he has, where he seemed to be a much more experienced international player than he is, and Anderson, well, there's no one more experienced in world cricket than he is, and he was able to find those edges enough, and that frustration of having the drops go down, he was still able to come back and pick up wickets when he needed to.
Yeah, Robinson taking his first 5-wicket haul in Test cricket in his second match. And you're right, it does feel like he's been around for longer than sort of 3 innings. But I suppose that's the faith that Joe Root has in Robinson. When they need a wicket, that's who he's chucking the ball to, he and Anderson. It wasn't Broad. And look, Broad's a competitive soul, and good on him for it. I love the way that he relishes the chance to almost have a scrap with players inside the team to keep his spot, as he's been doing for, I suppose, 149 Test matches. There's almost always been someone looking over his shoulder, so that'll doubtless spur him on. But yeah, Robinson really does look like generation next here and now. And yes, the well-documented issues that he had after being suspended during his first Test match. But there's really no reason why he can't be a long-term prospect for England. 5 wickets, he's class, he's consistent, he's tall, he's quicker than you think. I think that's a part of it too. He's bowling consistently in the mid-80s in terms of miles per hour, which is a lot faster than what we thought when watching him in county cricket in previous years. He complements Anderson well. He's a fraction shorter than Anderson most of the time. He's able to hit the seam and get the ball rearing up towards those awkward spots that Pat Cummins tends to hit for Australia. So, yeah, they were good. And Sam Curran wasn't as good. He overpitched regularly, which made it confusing why Joe Root stuck with Curran when the second new ball was due and didn't immediately go to Anderson. That was a one-over experiment which cost them 14 runs and really shifted the momentum. You thought they were going to clean India up with the second new ball, and they probably got 30 or 40 extra runs in that little passage of play, which could prove influential in a relatively low-scoring game.
Yeah, it's an early Hall of Fame nomination, perhaps. Pretty much any time a real tail ender makes runs, it's entertaining. But for Bumrah, he had 43 runs in his career before this innings, and then came out and smacked, what was it, 28? A 6 and 3 fours. Admittedly, two of the 4s were edged over the cordon, but the 6 was picked up off a length and deposited over square leg. Lawrence was out there for exactly that shot, and it went over his head. And the other boundary was down the ground. Siraj hit one down the ground. Shami had a charmed life. Every shot that he hit way into the air somehow landed in a patch of clean grass. But Jadeja being out there with them for that period of time, or with Shami particularly, and the 56 that he made, look, sometimes it's going to come off. India don't have a good tail, we know that, but sometimes if you throw the bat, it'll go for you, and it did go for them. And a lead of 95 feels like it could be significant, even though England got through to the end of play today without losing a wicket. They're still 70 behind, and it could be a fairly large hill to climb if wickets go early tomorrow.
Yeah, some good bowling from India as well. They were unlucky not to find the outside edge, especially Mohammad Shami, who bowled first change. So they gave the new ball to Siraj alongside Bumrah. And he only bowled 3 overs after tea before the rain came. We only got 5.1 overs in until the close of play. But Shami, I suppose, looked the man most likely out of that lot. Just rebacking over the tail again. Freddie Wild made a good point. When your tail's as weak as India's, maybe changing strategy and swinging from the hip from the outset is a better play, knowing that you're unlikely to have the defensive technique to get through. Given that all players now, because of the T20 revolution, can hit the ball a long way. There's very few players that can't take the long handle now. That it kind of made sense, and it looked to me like a better strategy than waiting for a ball with their name on it by playing defensively. So yeah, good little tactical shift up perhaps by the Indian camp in the lead up to this series, especially on surfaces where there'll be ample lateral movement with the Duke's ball. So, and England's reply to that, I thought that Burns clipped a couple of balls quite neatly through mid-wicket. So, look, he was in form against New Zealand with a century in the first test, a half-century in the second. He was the in-form player in county cricket before the start of that. So not a lot of cricket in recent times. But, yeah, the very early signs are that he looks okay. And Sibley nearly got caught in a leg side trap at one stage, and perhaps the more vulnerable of the two. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how they respond to the challenge of a moving Duke's ball on what's likely to be another sort of overcast day tomorrow. You can probably tell if you're watching the YouTube video that while we've been recording, the sun has been on my face and off my face and creating a shadow then not creating a shadow. That's the weather at the moment. It is all over the place in the UK. So I don't see any reason why that will change on Saturday.
Yeah, well, the tail end swinging also has the advantage of making a captain like Joe Root put fielders out in the deep, which means that when you do miss Q1, it's probably less likely to go to hand. So there's that as well. Player of the day on the final word. This is an interesting one. Robinson with the 5 wickets, so he cleaned up a couple at the end. Anderson's efforts felt more influential to me through the middle of the day, but there's also a strong case for KL Rahul. India's innings would be nowhere without him, or for what Jadeja did with the bat.
Yeah, I would just note that with Jadeja today, he became the 5th quickest player in Test cricket to reach 2,000 Test runs after taking 200 Test wickets, which is significant. So, I mean, there's some pretty amazing names on that list, and he's right there with them. And I just think it reinforces why we need to reevaluate how we see Jadeja. I mean, I don't think it should be a straight shootout between Jadeja and Ashwin, by the way. I don't think it's about undermining the position of Ashwin as the primary spinner. But maybe as we get deeper in the series, we'll see the two of them in tandem, even on seam-friendly surfaces, because Jadeja is such an important player with the bat, and what he brings to the all-round package as well with what he does in the field. So, yeah, I don't think it's as clear as he does one or the other with respect to Ashwin or Jadeja. And, a reminder of that today with how quickly he's reached 2,000 runs alongside 200 Test wickets.
Hall of Fame, did you pick anything up with a final word flavour through the day?
Only one thing in the crowd today. They returned to it a number of times on television. It was the chap who continued to get picked up throwing the ball to himself wearing a Jack Russell outfit, which I thought, given, we're in Nottingham, we're not at Bristol, we're not at Gloucestershire, where Jack Russell hails from, but I suppose the standing in which the old wicketkeeper is held in by a certain generation means that people still dress up like him and want to be like him. And who wouldn't want to be like him? If you may want to wicket-keep like him, you may want to make your cups of tea like him with one tea bag lasting the week. You may want to paint like him. You may want to blindfold your teammates so they don't know where you live. One of those old anecdotes about Jack Russell. Whatever it is, he's certainly an icon, and that was on show again today at Trent Bridge.
The one that stood out for me was we were talking about India's 9, 10, 11 not being very good. When Mohammad Shami had walked out to the crease, and Jadeja had been pretty circumspect while he was batting out there with KL Rahul, Michael Atherton on the commentary says to Michael Holding, do you think Jadeja will be a bit more aggressive now? And Holding says, it will depend whether he has any faith in Mohammad Shami. The very next ball, Jadeja goes for this huge pull shot, trying to put it in the stands, drags it out to deep backward square for 2 runs, and you're like, I don't think he has a lot of faith in Mohammad Shami.
No, I think that's right. DJ Shami isn't someone you would trust, but he can hit the long ball. Again, we saw it today down the ground, Siraj down the ground. Yeah, it's a bit of a watch this space for mine on how we see the Indian fast bowlers bat through the series. I mean, we write them off, but they've found a different way of making it work today, and I think that, taking the longer lens on this, that could be important in them finding extra runs that they've missed out on in the last couple of years.
This is the Final Word Daily. We'll be back on day 4. Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. Thanks for watching. We're pushing on towards 20,000 subscribers on the channel, so hit the button if you would like to hang out with us a bit more. Day 4, day 5 should be a cracker of a test match coming up.
Bye.
Woodstock Cricket, home of the finest handmade cricket bats and soft goods. Visit either our showroom or workshop and experience the magic for yourselves. For bookings, contact info@woodstockcricket.co.uk.